All right, ladies and gentlemen of the beautiful crypto market, the last 24 hours have been really interesting for crypto, but not really because everything's been pumping or anything of this sort. No, I mean, I've been taking a look at everything that's happening in the market, and I can tell you that the best way to describe it is just interesting, right? But there's something happening over the next few hours you need to pay attention to because, like I stated, the Sunday's close of the Bitcoin price is going to be the most crucial, most important close in a long time. And depending on whether or not we break 95,000, well, I'd say that defines the alt season or not. Then again, what we've often seen is pumps throughout the weekend, the dumps on Monday. But I wonder how today is going to end. Regardless, talking about macro, I'd say this is one of the most interesting pieces of right now. U.S. executives have rarely been this pessimistic about the economy. The ratio of S&P 500 companies mentions of better or stronger versus worse or weaker during Q1 of 2025. Man, this is hard to make you guys view it in the proper light. Here we go. I don't know if this made anything better. Or weaker during Q1 2025 earnings call hit 1.7x, the lowest since 2008. By comparison, the ratio was 3.1x in the prior quarter, or nearly twice as high. Even during 2020, this indicator was higher at 2.0x. Along with skyrocketing uncertainty, companies are having difficulty giving guidance. It's clear an economic slowdown is imminent. And here we see drop-off in mentions of better, stronger versus worse, weaker. Mentions of better or stronger versus worse, weaker on the S&P 500 earnings call, which is rather peculiar. Having said that, we also have got ourselves some bullish news for XRP. For all of you that do not know, right, there's something pretty juicy that's happening over the past few days. And one has to do with the ETFs. The other has to do with, I guess, just random futures listings, like, for example, on CME. But the news that came out is that Hashtags just launched XRP H11. Let me show you. Hashtags had launched XRP H11, the world's first XRP spot ETF in Brazil. The ETF tracks the Nasdaq XRP reference price index with 95% of its assets allocated to XRP. Now, the nice thing about this is not that this is going to bring tons of volume, but it's the fact that Hashtags thought it was a necessity to have XRP included here, specifically only for Japan. Now, think about it. Is it worth it to launch an ETF in all these random countries? Well, not if there's really non-demand at all. Brazil is not one of the countries I think of necessarily to launch an XP ETF, but I guess they found it necessary plus profitable, which is why they went for it. Now, that news aside, there's also a lot of sources that I usually look at every single day to see. By the way, here's the view, just for a second, appreciate it, right? I won't show you inside right now, but just anyway. Just for a second, there's a lot of news outlets that I usually cover every single day, but none of them have posted anything throughout the last 24 hours. That is, of course, talking about crypto news, not just general news. For example, general news-wise, macro news, U.S. Treasury funds posted a record $19 billion in net inflows last week. This surpassed the previous high of $14 billion seen during the 2020 pandemic. As a result, the 4-week moving average jumped to $7 billion, the highest since March 2023. Meanwhile, the 30-year Treasury yield is down nearly 30 basis points from its April high. The U.S. bond market is stabilizing again. And a little bit more news about this whole China changing the tariff situation. And I mean, the whole theory of Bitcoin closing above 95,000 before we get bullish again, I've mostly already covered, right? In yesterday's video, I talked about you've got 48 hours until this happens. What we're talking about is the close of the week. And this close could be the first time closing above 95,000 in such a long while. But there's another chart I want to show you. This Bitcoin chart here also shows pretty clearly how there's a massive parabolic phase, kind of like a stabilizing couple of years, massive parabolic phase. Let's call it stabilizing for a few years, massive parabolic phase that we have still yet to have. And I mean, I don't want to say that these cycles are always going to be the same, but at least they're going to rhyme to some extent, right? And as at this point, we have seen some of the upside, but I call that the lesser part of the bull market, the less crazy part. Still, the real bullish phase to maybe, for example, 200,000 or 250,000, maybe even 300,000, in my opinion, has still yet to happen. And so I'm still waiting for the next big impulse for Bitcoin. And we don't know exactly what's going to cause it. I mean, there's a lot of people talking about the M2 chart or the corrected M2 chart. One has potentially wrong data about India, but there's a lot of discussion about that as well. Here's, for example, the supposed corrected chart that showcases a massive spike in M2 upcoming relative to where Bitcoin has gone recently. And that would also cause Bitcoin to go for a massive spike here. I mean, if we're talking on the short term, CME gap at 94.6 thousand, we are significantly below it. I think we're right now at 94,000 flat. But again, to get in this bullish position, we need to get above 95,000. So filling the CME gap amongst the weekend here, while also again closing significantly higher above practically, I'm going to say the middle of that. So let's say just this high, basically, we need to close above that to remain bull market-y. And remember, ladies and gents, all you had to do in the past couple of years really is just buy different coins. You could say Bitcoin, but also, truthfully, if you just bought altcoins, it didn't really matter which one, you'd be up a ton. And I often cover the comparison with the S&P 500, and I'll tell you this, relatively, it would have always been better to buy any sort of altcoin whatsoever. You didn't even have to think about it. You'd be up significantly versus the S&P gold or whatever. It's just on the short term, sometimes it could be that one gold or the S&P is better. Longer term, not at all. And I think this will remain for quite a significant while because really all the institutional money is not just quite in yet. Just yesterday, we had an announcement that some bigger companies were trying to instantly buy a ton of Bitcoin, I think like $30 or $40 billion, just get started being a MicroStrategy 2.0. But that race really is not that far in. I think that race is going to go significantly harder over time. And man, a lot of people have been asking me about the bots and what my strategy is going to be if things go sour. Now, let me quickly tell you about the 𝗕𝗓𝗪 and 𝗂𝗎 bot. These two, we actually bought in halfway, only because we expected things to potentially fall down lower, and so we could lower our average price. But let me remind you that this minus is all part of the plan, meaning what the volatility bot really here is all about, the grid bot, is it's buying when things go lower and selling as things go higher. What you want, theoretically speaking, is for it to go all the way towards the bottom of the range, in this case here 4 cents, and then go right back up to 50. If it only goes up, we would actually be better off just opening longs. And again, theoretically speaking, we'd be better off getting a juicy entry in, the price then going up, then coming down, then up, then down, then up. In this case here, it went up a bit, went down. We only made a few dollars worth of profit, only 0.1% really. But still, the idea is that over time, these unrealized losses that you're seeing right there will actually only cut into your total profit. If, for example, let's see here, the XRP bot were to get into a similar sort of position, right now it's in total profit because of unrealized plus grid, right? Soon, this grid profit will be up significantly, so that if this goes into a minus, now it could go to minus 40, we still be in a positive. If it goes to minus 10,000, for example, we still are in a positive over time. It just, again, takes time with these bots, but that's the beautiful thing about them, that over time, they're just absolute money-making machines. And I've actually, or at least I will show you just by tracking everything and continuing to show you this over time. It's really something quite special. And let me say again, if you also want to follow along with my bot trading, with everything that I'm doing, you can check out the links down below. Payonix right there is the exchange I'm using. The bonus link right there is just to claim yourself an additional little couple $100 extra for depositing. You can see right here, if you deposit $200, you get $100 for free. If you deposit $5,000, you get $800 for free. Let me go back to this. Oh yeah, if you, by the way, press the copy link, this is what it shows you like. You just press copy the bot, then I'll ask you how much you want to invest. You just click whatever you want to do. And all you got to watch for yourself is how much margin you add. But again, to go back to it, 𝗂𝗎's bot, you can see it's at a $14 unrealized loss, right? But in just 1 day or so, 1 day and a half, we've made $13 on the bot. So what happens now is it offsets itself, so the total profit is actually at a plus right now. Again, the idea is hopefully 𝗂𝗎 goes down a lot, then goes back up a lot, so you can just keep selling. This is $13 in 1 and a bit day, whereas, for example, the Solana bot has been open for 2.5 days and made less profit. Why? Because 𝗂𝗎 has been way more volatile. 𝗂𝗎 went down a lot more in the same time, or potentially up, but let's just say down. You can see even here, 𝗂𝗎, $13, Bitcoin, $16. And again, grid profit is just locked in, cashed in profit. But that's also because my account size is very, very small. We're only doing this with a couple $1,000s instead of a couple $100,000 like the plan was. But that's because we opened a small account for the start. In maybe a few weeks, I'll open some very, very big account, or I'll just add a couple of very, very massive bots on here just to prove my point. But anyway, you can look at every single placement here to see how it's gonna buy and how it's gonna sell, and why ultimately going down significantly is a very, very profitable thing. Again, it takes some time, but that's ultimately what happens. And to get back, because some people have actually asked, let me get this out into the shade a bit more even. I think it's still too warm and the brightness is not working nicely. Even though it's not actually that warm, like side note, why is it not focusing? It looks, maybe you can't really see it. It looks warm, It's 21 degrees, I believe, but man, am I sweating my balls off. It's crazy, man. Anyway, regardless, the situation here with the trades, people were asking about the margin. The thing is, all you gotta watch out for is to have this liquidation price not at a level where you're stressing out every single day. For example, with SUI right now, you can see latest price is $3.6. My liquidation is $174. It can go down 50% and I'm still fine, right? But I could just add some extra margin as the price goes down lower. And some people said, when are you gonna buy your second round? Well, potentially if it goes below $3, maybe to $2.50, I'll buy again. If it doesn't, it's not a problem, right? Because our bot will just keep making money. It's just less than it could have done. But that's also to keep yourself safe so you can keep some money on the side in case things do go sour, to just save yourself from a negative scenario. So again, we're cutting a little bit of extra profit for just more safety, but ultimately these things are just cash cows. Not financial advice, by the way. This is just my strategies that I don't really mind losing a bit of extra profit for just extra comfort. That's the same for just adding any margin. Really, you don't have to, right? You could have a liquidation price extremely high. I just have it for extra comfort, extra peace of mind. So it's just almost like risk-free. It's not risk-free. There's ultimately risks involved, but I think the risk is quite low with these things. And some people will be wondering, why am I gonna cover it every single day, these bots? Because, well, I promise to keep you guys updated whenever I do something new. And because, well, one of my friends has been telling me about this for maybe 2 years or so. I always ignored it. It's like, and I had a bot open. On Bybit, for example, I've had them open for maybe 2.5 years, something like that. There's one more platform I had some DCA bots on. I don't even remember which platform, right? And I realized, well, over the past years, it's in hundreds of percent profit. And I thought to myself, why didn't I actually just take a better look at it? Then I looked at the numbers, looked at the full sheet, and realized, whoa, this is so consistent over so many years, and it makes so much sense because crypto perpetually goes up. The only problem is with longs, full futures longs, the problem is that if it goes down for a while, first of all, you might lose in funding a little bit, but more importantly, you don't really get that much benefit from the upside. And the downside sometimes with traditional DCA bots is that you don't properly sell, or at least not in the format in which this one does. And so when you look at the numbers, it just comes out to be beautiful in a market that is generally speaking upwards. Again, it can be down for a while, it can be down for multiple months. It's actually still fine because again, as long as there's upswings in the price, it'll sell properly, giving you profit in the end. But ultimately, man, I just keep thinking about it. This stuff, it's quite crazy how bullish it is, man. It's quite crazy. That's why I'm sharing it so ridiculously often here, because it's a golden trick. Anyway, regardless, get back to Bitcoin's price. 95,000, very, very important level to watch. If it closes above it at the end of the week, most likely a crazy altcoin season is to follow. If it doesn't, it's not as if an altcoin season can't follow, but if it does, then it's almost certain. So that's just why I keep saying, hey, a few more hours, lock in, I should say. Things could get really, really crazy over here. I'm gonna be watching it because some alts have started to fall a little bit, but potentially if Bitcoin sets one more push, we're locked in, baby. That's about it.